It's all about being a professional, doing things the right way, making sure that you're being respectful to all those that are around you and of your space. I think when you do that, you end up being successful and wherever you're at and whatever you're doing.
That was Texans rookie Jalen Pitre as the Texans kicked off rookie minicamp as the offseason program continues. Good evening, everybody. Welcome once again into the Fox 26 Sports Stream. I'm Sal Manine, sports producer here at Fox 26. We'll get into Texans camp and the rookie minicamp that just ramped up. We'll also delve deep into the schedule as it was officially unveiled a few days ago. And we'll take a look at how things lay out for your 2022 Texans. We'll also talk some Rockets, even some U of H hoops, and of course, the best team playing sports in the city of Houston right now, and that is your red-hot Houston Astros, who are in action as we speak in Fenway Park. They just wrapped up the third inning, still scoreless. Stros did appear to dodge a bullet early as Jose Altuve got hit on the hand, but he remained in the game and seems to be okay. So we'll get into some Astros talk as things roll along, but we want to remind you, we do this every Monday night just after 7 o'clock. You can find us by going to our YouTube page. You can just search Fox 26 Houston in YouTube. You'll find our channel there. You can go to our Facebook page, Twitter, and of course on our website, fox26houston.com. All right, so I mentioned the schedule for the Texans came out. As everybody knows by now, they are opening up with a divisional game as they will host the Colts on September 11th, noon kick at NRG Stadium. But then you see it's a early bye week, and 3 of their first 5 games are on the road. So certainly a challenging start for what is a very young Texans team. So we'll get into the schedule a little bit in a minute here, but I did want to wrap up things from rookie minicamp. As you heard, Jalen Pitre, the second-round pick out of Baylor, local kid from Stafford, was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year this past season. He was one of a number of rookies because it wasn't just that 9-person draft class that was there, a number of undrafted free agents and some guys trying out for the Texans who took part in rookie camp over the weekend. Head coach Lovie Smith said, it's really not a camp. It's really not a bunch of practices. He looked at it more as an orientation, getting all these guys used to what does it take to be a professional? How do the Houston Texans like to do things? And then even just some of the ins and outs of where do you go in your new place of business? Any of us who have ever started a new job before, sometimes you just got to find basic things like where do you park? Where do you come in and out of? Where's the bathroom? All kinds of stuff like that. So here's Lovie Smith on just what they were able to get into with the rookies over this past weekend at NRG Stadium.
As I tell the guys, it's like finals week, into 2 days. So we're trying to cram as much information as possible. Monday, when they blend in with our veterans, they don't want to hear about them being rookies. We're not going to go back. The train is taken off. So you're just trying to catch them up as much as anything. And not just the football part, on just how we do things. I had to tell the guys exactly how to get to our practice fields. So there's an awful lot that goes into guys getting somewhere for the first time.
And again, sometimes it's easy to lose sight of just those basic things that you have to go over with guys, no matter how many first-round picks or how many highly touted guys you're bringing into the building. Sometimes it's just as simple as, this is where you go to get to the practice facility. So there's not a lot to get into in terms of conclusions you can draw off of the guys just going through some very basic workouts up at NRG. It was really a lot of stretching, conditioning work. Lovie Smith said they wanted to just kind of get a baseline of where all their rookies are at. So is now they start to integrate them this week with working and meeting with all the veterans. They can have a general idea of where guys are. Let's hear one more from rookie minicamp. Another one of the rookies who we haven't heard too much from as of late, Christian Harris, who the linebacker out of Alabama, who the Texans traded up or back into the third round to take. And he was the guy who, if you were following on social media, you saw Lovie Smith almost doing jumping jacks, running into Nick Casario's arms to hug him after drafting a super athletic linebacker in Christian Harris. He's obviously coming from a program in the Crimson Tide where they're not used to losing a whole lot. And now he's coming to a team with the Texans that is in the midst of a rebuild and more likely than not is going to face a whole lot of losing early on in his NFL career. Here's what Christian Harris had to say on that front.
The same mindset for me, honestly. I want to dominate every snap that I can. I think, I bring that type of energy to the field, and I think we have a lot of guys in this class for sure, in the rookie class, and guys on this team that think the same way. And I think, just collectively getting everybody on that same mindset to want to win and do whatever it takes. That's what we did at Alabama, so that's the same thing I'm trying to do here.
Obviously, it's going to be much easier said than done. But again, this was a very SEC-heavy draft class. A lot of guys who are used to just buckling up the chin straps and going out there and being some of the biggest, baddest guys on their team and in the game when they're playing. And so if you bring in a bunch of young, hungry guys, sometimes that's the first step towards rebuilding something and trying to get back to where the Texans ultimately want to get to in terms of atop the AFC South. So there'll be a lot more time to get into just how good or bad rookies are looking. More of that really isn't going to come until you start to get into training camp and the preseason. We still got a long ways to go until we get that in that regard. The Texans did make it official, as we reported over the weekend, that they have signed the last of their draft picks. Kenyon Green, another local kid, a Tascasita alum, former offensive lineman at Texas A&M, and then John Mechie III, the slot receiver, another Alabama guy who they took in the third round. He was at rookie minicamp over the weekend, wasn't able, obviously, to go through all of the drills because he's still recovering from off-season ACL surgery, but thus far, everything that he and the coaching staff have had to say is that Mechie is right on track, and later on this summer will be a full go, and then they can really get an evaluation of just where he's at and what he can do. But Lovie Smith did not hesitate to say they're expecting John Mechie III to play and to contribute this year as a rookie. All right, so I mentioned the schedule. We took a look at the first third. Here it is again, opens with an AFC South game at home against Matt Ryan and the Colts. Then you have to travel to Denver to take on a revamped Broncos team that now has Russell Wilson under center. Then a homecoming for Lovie in week 3 as he will return to Chicago, where he, of course, spent a decade as head coach, and that was the team that gave Lovie his start as an NFL head coach. Then home for Justin Herbert and the Chargers, a game that the Texans won a year ago, but you have to think, especially after all the moves that the LA Chargers made this offseason, they're going to come in not looking past the Texans and looking to exact some measure of revenge. Then another division game on the road as they go to take on a Jaguars team that really can't be any more hapless than they were a year ago, and all the various stories that have come out about Urban Meyer and how things transpired under his regime. And then right there, week 6, you're already into the bye. So 2 different ways to look at it. One, you can say with such a young team and so many new faces getting into the mix, having your bye week early on may not be the worst thing because it gives you a chance to retool, to go over some things, to make the adjustments you need to if you're going to be playing so many first and second year players or guys that are in new roles on the 53-man roster. Or you can look at it the other way and go, you're not even out of October and you already have your bye, which means you're going to play a whole lot of football after that, and you're not a terribly deep team to begin with, and it's going to be tough to try to navigate those final 12 weeks of the season when you don't have any weeks off. So that's what the first third of the season looks like. Again, 3 of the first 5 games on the road before the bye week. Then here is the middle part, again, opening up on the road out of the bye to take on a Raiders team who some people think could be a trendy pick in the AFC West. It's already shaping up to be one of the best divisions in football. Obviously, now that they have brought in a top flight receiver in Devontae Adams, this is going to be a chance for the Texans' biggest acquisition this offseason, number 3 overall pick, Derek Stingley Jr., to really have a baptism by fire going up against one of, if not the best wide receiver in football right now. Then a pair of home games back-to-back against the Titans and the Eagles, and you'll notice that is a Thursday night game. That's part of the new Amazon package that you have to watch the game on Amazon Prime, but there's not a lot of rest in between that game. So to face what might be the preseason favorite in the AFC South, it's either the Titans or the Colts, but obviously a team that has had the Texans number the past season, to have to face them, and then on short rest, an Eagles team that is trending upward, and at least you get both those games at home. But that's going to be a tall task to open up on the road out of the bye, and then 2 games in less than a week's time. Then the Texans will get 10 days off because they played on Thursday before they have to travel up to the Meadowlands to take on the Giants, then back home to take on Washington. Certainly those are 2 opportunities for the Texans to steal a win, obviously knowing where those 2 teams have been the past couple of seasons, but they're also 2 teams that have added a lot. Specifically, the Giants had a really good draft, and they seem to think that now that they've wiped their hands of the previous regime, they are ready to take a step forward. So not going to be easy, but certainly if you're looking for wins in the middle third of the schedule, that would be where I would start. And then on November 27th, a trip to Miami to take on the Dolphins, who everyone knows this year is going to come down to Tua Tagovailoa. If he's healthy, if he can take a step forward, then all the pieces that they have around him, that should be a playoff team. If Tua continues to struggle, continues to be inconsistent, then even adding the likes of Tyreek Hill, that could possibly be a game that the Texans could look to steal. Remember, they actually played fairly well, all things considered, when they visited Miami last year. It was just a whole bunch of turnovers that did them in. It was a very sloppy game all around, and the turnovers are what prevented the Texans from pulling the upset a year ago. Then to close out the season, December 4th is obviously the game that everybody has circled. That is when Deshaun Watson and the Cleveland Browns will come to NRG Stadium. Should point out a report out today from Jacina Anderson from CBS Sports that the NFL is planning to meet with Deshaun Watson in the state of Texas sometime this week. Does that mean that a possible ruling on any type of suspension is on the horizon? Who knows? Could we be hearing something soon? Could it be closer to the season? Could it not be for another year or two? Is obviously the NFL is doing its own investigation into the 22 civil lawsuits against Deshaun Watson alleging sexual abuse and or misconduct. So if Deshaun Watson is playing, and you have to wonder if part of the schedule makers' decision to put the Browns' visit to Houston was at the latter part of the season was for that exact reason, that if he was to be suspended 4 games, 6 games, whatever, he would in theory be back when he is supposed to make his homecoming to NRG. It'll be interesting to see what kind of reception he gets from the NRG crowd, but that's obviously the game that everybody's looking at. And then right after that, I don't care what the records are. I don't care how good the teams are. Anytime the Texans and Cowboys play, you got to get excited. The battle for the Lone Star State. It's going to be in Jerry World. We'll have it for you right here on Fox 26. Everybody knows the story with the Cowboys. They get more publicity, more love, more talk than any team in the NFL, and they really haven't done much to warrant it in terms of win-loss. So it's another season that everyone in Cowboy land thinks this is the favorite to win the division. This is a team that can go to the Super Bowl, but their history says otherwise. So that'll be 1 week later on December 11th, then a tough game right after that. And I mean, even if you just get all the extraneous stuff away from this 3-game set right here, you're facing Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott, and then Patrick Mahomes 3 straight weeks. So certainly not going to be an easy test, but this is where you want to see that revamped secondary using 2 of your first 3 picks on players in the secondary, what kind of dividend is it going to play as you face three of the better quarterbacks in the NFL? Then to close things out, Christmas Eve, a trip to Nashville to take on the Titans. New Year's Day, home game against the Jags. And then close things out because we're playing 17 games still at the Colts on the road. That game time will be decided later on once they see where all the teams are in the standings and playoff scenarios and all that kind of stuff. So that is the quick glance of the Texans 2022 season. The over-under in Vegas still remains about 4.5, and that's probably right on. The Texans, maybe they can steal a couple that they shouldn't and they win 4 or 5 games, or maybe the rookies do look like rookies for much of the year. Maybe Davis Mills, now that there is a lot more tape out on him, maybe he doesn't take that step and you're looking at a team that only wins a handful of games. But certainly some chances for the Texans to steal some, and also some chances to see how they fare against the better competition in the NFL. And just as we talked about a year ago, so much of 2022, if you're a Texans fan, is going to have to be evaluated via the eye test. They're probably going to lose more games than they win, but are you starting to see improvement from the younger guys? Are you starting to see them trending in the right direction? Are they laying a foundation, and do they have something to build towards the future when you can add another draft class, because you're going to continue to have increased draft capital as a result of the Deshaun trade? And if you do finish in the bottom half of the standings, likely to get an early pick, if not one of the first 2 or 3 picks overall. So it's going to be this year just like last year, but I guess a little bit different, because you at least kind of see the roadmap. You see the plan of what the Texans want to try to do as far as laying down the bricks of their rebuild. It's going to really come down to the eye test. And of course, it starts with Davis Mills in terms of, is he potentially a long-term answer at the quarterback position, or is he more of just a placeholder? And is that one of the positions you're looking at in the 2023 draft? So we'll get more into Texans as we get deeper into the summer and they start opening up OTAs, and we get a closer look at some of the guys. But that's where things stand right now. All right, let's check in on the Astros. Right now, looks like Jake Odorizzi in a little bit of trouble. Bottom of the 4th, still scoreless, but the Sox have the bases loaded, only 1 out. So we will keep you updated on that. We'll, of course, have the highlights for you tonight on Fox 26 News at 9. Now, I mentioned the draft, and the Texans are getting their first look at this most recent draft. The Rockets will find out where they are going to pick in the upcoming draft tomorrow night. That is when the NBA draft lottery will be held at the Combine in Chicago. That's where the ping pong balls will be selected. The Rockets, thanks to finishing with the worst record in the entire league, are guaranteed no worse than the 5th overall pick. Obviously, they share the best odds of getting the number 1 overall pick. But if they can at least stay in the top 4, this is likely what they're looking at as far as the top players available. And obviously there's a lot of time between now and the draft, and depending on where the Rockets and other teams fall, does maybe another player shoot up the draft boards. But you're looking at a Paulo Banchero out of Duke, Chet Holmgren from Gonzaga, Jabari Smith out of Auburn, or Jaden Ivey out of Purdue. Those seem to be, in some varying order, the top 4 guys on the NBA draft radar as far as who could go number 1. And a lot of it may come down to which team actually ends up with the number 1 pick. What are their needs? Where do they want to go? So unlike maybe last year's draft or some of those drafts where you go, all right, there's a Zion, there's an Anthony Davis, there's a LeBron, where you go, you got to get the number 1 pick. As long as the Rockets land in the top 2, 3, 4, if they can come away with any of these 4 players, it's still going to be a big step in the right direction as far as their rebuild and who you can try to work into the mix and play alongside a Jalen Green or so many of these young guys, Alperen Şengün, who were able to get a lot of playing time down the stretch, and especially in the case of Jalen Green, looked tremendous after the All-Star break. So Paulo Banchero, probably the most NBA ready, has an NBA ready body. Defense still needs a lot of work, but he had a good year as a one and done at Duke, had a really strong NCAA tournament. Chet Holmgren is going to be one of those guys who people are going to talk about for years, depending on where he gets drafted, because if he lives up to the potential and you go, this really is a unicorn, a 7-foot guy who's a premier defender, can move his feet in the paint, block shots, run the court, even step out and knock down some from three, and his body holds up, you're going, why wouldn't you want that in today's game? If you do look at it and go, he's got a very skinny frame. Is it the type of body that you can add a lot of weight to? Is he going to be able to sustain playing an NBA season night in, night out for years on end? And are you talking about 3, 4, 5 years down the line, this being a premier guy, or this being someone who you go, look, all the warning signs and the red flags were there. He's obviously going to be perhaps the biggest wild card in the draft. Jabari Smith does a little bit of everything, was tremendous for Bruce Pearl and War Eagle this past season. Obviously did not end well in the NCAA tournament, but people have described him as another version of Rashard Lewis, a Houston guy, somebody who can maybe even do a little more at his age than Rashard Lewis when he first came out of high school right to the NBA. And then Jaden Ivey, who has been described as a Ja Morant type player. We just saw what Ja was able to do this past season in only his third year in the league. So again, if the Rockets were able to come away with any of those 4 players, I think they're still right on track to continue this rebuild, and you can make the case for any of them to be able to play alongside a Jalen Green. So we will find out again tomorrow at 7 o'clock is when they will draw the ping pong balls, and the Rockets will learn their fate for the 2022 NBA draft. Now, the combine did get underway today up in Chicago, and a lot of the games that they started playing today were for the G League select team. These are guys who were invited specifically to compete in some 5-on-5 games before the actual combine with some of the bigger names like the guys we just showed you. And among that group is a couple of U of H guys, Fabian White Jr., Marcus Sasser, and Kyler Edwards, all taking part in the 5-on-5 games today. Marcus Sasser, by accounts from people who were in the building and watching him play, everyone said he looked tremendous. The explosiveness was there, that he looked like the Marcus Sasser who UH fans remember before he got hurt. And could his stock possibly be trending high enough that he does not return to U of H? Because he said he's maintaining his eligibility for right now, but if he has a really good combine and a really good week up there in Chicago, here's the right things, maybe he decides to keep his name in the draft. And now you're talking about a big difference between U of H possibly being the preseason number 1, 2, or 3 team in the land versus opening up the season a little bit lower in the rankings if you were to lose a Marcus Sasser to the NBA. It's just one of the many things that U of H is going to have to try to figure out between now and the start of their training camp this fall. We did get the chance to speak with Kelvin Sampson today. He was taking part in Coach Dana Holgerson's golf tournament up at the Wildcat Golf Club. And one of the things that Coach Sampson was asked about was the new world in which all college athletics, but especially college basketball, finds itself with dealing with the portal, dealing with name, image, likeness, and how those things both coexist. And we've heard some of the horror stories already of kids entering the portal and trying to find a back channel to who can get me the best deal, the most money. What am I going to do to maximize my potential and maximize my earning potential, I should say, in the short window that you are a college star? It's a little bit lengthy, but it's pretty good. Here's Coach Sampson on dealing with all the different rules or lack thereof as it pertains to the transfer portal and NIL.
People that make these decisions, unfortunately, are not athletically inclined to read the unintended consequences. For instance, the transfer portal. As soon as they gave unencumbered freedom to guys to transfer and be eligible right away, and you couple that with the NIL, now you do have free agency. If you want to slow the NIL down, make kids sit out a year. Because a lot of them are transferring because of money. That's not what it was intended to do, But it's a mess. It really is a mess. I think about these kids at these smaller colleges, low majors, mid majors. These freshmen have a great year. Some school needs a point guard. Somebody gets a hold of his AAU coach saying, here's what we want to pay him. So he transfers from that coach. That coach recruited him. He built a relationship. He developed him. Now somebody called him and offered him $20,000 a month. He's gone. What are we doing? Whose idea was that? So now how do you stop it? You don't. That's a bell that it's like unringing a bell. That bell's rung. Now you got trying to throw a lasso around a caboose. Good luck with that. So it is what it is. I just, I feel bad for the game. There's a greediness about this thing that doesn't sit well with me. But it's like we're not going to spend money trying to get kids here. We're going to take care of the kids we do have. That's far more important to me.
Obviously, one way you can try to get around all of this is just start paying the players themselves. Not NIL, but the schools sign a contract with them just like they do any of their other employees. And, all right, if you're going to come play for such and such university, we're going to compensate you and we can contractually keep you on our campus and playing for our team. But obviously that's far unlikely to happen. And so we're going to continue to be in this wild, wild west of guys getting recruited one place, then jumping ship quickly. And yeah, their coach Sampson used the word greediness, but it's a multi-billion-dollar industry. I don't see the coaches. I don't see the athletic directors, the other administrators, the TV execs ever complaining when the 6, 7, 8-figure contracts and compensation is in front of them. But if it's going to be a big-time business, then this is part of the collateral damage and perhaps something that the NCAA should have figured out. And they knew this day was coming, but they just kept thinking for years and years they could kick the can down the road. And so now we're in this position where guys are transferring left and right. Money's being thrown around. Nobody knows what's going on. And it's probably going to take some time for them to fix it, because thus far the various things that the NCAA has thrown out are mere suggestions or, a tisk, but it's not actually going to lead to any kind of change or structure right now. All right, before we get out of here, did want to update you on the Astros. I mentioned that Jake Odorizzi was in a bases-loaded jam, only gave up 1 run. So all things considered, was able to get out of the inning, giving up only 1 run. And just moments ago, Chas McCormick got that one back, tying things up with a solo home run. So it is 1-1 as they are playing in the top of the 5th right now. 2 outs for the Astros. Again, we will have those highlights for you tonight coming up on Fox 26 News at 9. As always, if you want the most up-to-the-minute news, scores, updates, anything you want to know in the Houston sports scene, make sure you are following our sports director, Mark Berman. You can find him on Twitter. His handle is @MarkBerman. Fox 26. NBA draft lottery is tomorrow. The combine will then pick up later this week. Astros will return home this weekend to play host to the Rangers. So be sure to stay tuned to Fox 26 for all that and more. And until next Monday, we will see you on the various social media and online platforms. For all of us here at Fox 26, I'm Sal Manine. Take care. Have a good one, everyone.